7-year-old Tommy Martinez stood frozen at the busy intersection of Fifth Avenue and Main Street, his tiny shoulders shaking as tears streamed down his face, while hundreds of strangers rushed past him like he was invisible. But one man named David Chen noticed something that would change everything, and what happened next will restore your faith in humanity forever. The morning started like any other Tuesday. In downtown Chicago, Tommy had been walking to school with his father, Miguel, when suddenly his dad collapsed right there on the sidewalk, clutching his chest as paramedics rushed him to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in the chaos. Nobody noticed that Tommy had gotten separated from the ambulance crew, and now this little boy found himself completely alone in the middle of one of the busiest parts of the city. Tommy knew he was supposed to meet his father at their usual spot after school, but his dad wasn't there. And as the minutes turned into hours, this brave little boy refused to leave that corner because he promised his papa he would always wait right there, no matter what happened. And Tommy always kept his promises, even when he was scared and hungry, and the sun was starting to set. David Chen was running late for his business meeting when he spotted something that made him stop dead in his tracks: a small boy standing perfectly still at the crosswalk while tears rolled down his cheeks. And in that moment, David knew he couldn't just walk away, because something deep inside told him this child needed help, and David always trusted his instincts. David approached the little boy. He knelt down to eye level and asked Tommy what was wrong, and when Tommy explained through his tears that his papa had fallen down and the ambulance took him away, David felt his heart break because he recognized the look of pure terror in this child's eyes, the same look his own son had when David was deployed overseas and couldn't come home. But then David asked Tommy a question that would change everything. He said, "Tell me your papa's name." And when Tommy whispered Miguel Martinez, David couldn't believe what he was hearing, because Miguel Martinez wasn't just any name, it was the name of his best friend from high school, the same Miguel who had saved David's life during their tour in Afghanistan, the same Miguel who had been the best man at David's wedding, 20 years earlier. David and Miguel had served together in the army, and during a dangerous mission in Kabul, Miguel had risked his own life to pull David from a burning vehicle, and that day Miguel made David promise that if anything ever happened to him, David would take care of his family, and David had promised. But after they returned home, life got busy, they lost touch, and David always wondered what happened to his brother in arms. Now kneeling in front of Miguel's son, David realized that fate had brought them together again, and with tears in his own eyes, David looked at Tommy and said the words that would comfort this scared little boy: "I am your dad's best friend, and I am going to take care of you until we find him." And Tommy's face lit up like Christmas morning, because somehow he knew this stranger was telling the truth. David immediately called the hospitals while Tommy held his hand tight, and within minutes they discovered that Miguel was at Northwestern Memorial, recovering from a heart attack, and was desperately asking every nurse and doctor if they had seen his son. And when David walked into that hospital room carrying Tommy, the reunion was so emotional that even the toughest nurses in the cardiac unit were wiping away tears. Miguel grabbed his son and held him like he would never let go, and then he looked at David and said, "I knew you would find him somehow, because you always keep your promises." And in that moment, 20 years of separation melted away, and two best friends were reunited in the most incredible way possible. But the story doesn't end there, because Miguel's heart attack was severe, and he needed expensive surgery that his insurance wouldn't fully cover, and medical bills were piling up faster than a single father could handle, and Miguel was facing the impossible choice between his health and keeping a roof over his son's head. David couldn't let his best friend struggle alone, so he organized a fundraiser in their community, and what happened next was absolutely miraculous, because when people heard Tommy's story about the brave little boy who waited at the crosswalk for his papa, complete strangers started donating money, and the local news picked up the story, and soon donations were pouring in from across the country. The fundraiser raised over $50,000 in just 2 weeks, enough to cover all of Miguel's medical expenses and provide a safety net for Tommy and his father. But more importantly, it showed how one act of kindness can create a ripple effect that touches hundreds of lives. Tommy returned to school as a hero, and his classmates were amazed that their quiet friend had such an incredible story, and teachers used Tommy's experience to teach children about courage and the importance of keeping promises and never giving up hope, even when things seem impossible. Miguel made a full recovery and returned to his job as a construction supervisor, but now he and David make sure to meet every week for coffee with Tommy, and the three of them have become an unbreakable family unit. And Tommy has gained not just his father back, but also the coolest uncle he could ever ask for. David often thinks about what would have happened if he had been too busy to stop that day, or if he had ignored that inner voice telling him to help, and he realizes that sometimes the universe puts us exactly where we need to be, at exactly the right moment, and our choice to act with kindness can literally save lives. The crosswalk, where Tommy waited, has become a local landmark, and people in the neighborhood now call it Tommy's Corner, because his story has inspired so many acts of kindness in their community, and children who hear his story learn that heroes don't wear capes. They just choose to care when others walk away. 6 months later, Miguel surprised David by asking him to be Tommy's godfather during a special ceremony at their church, and as David held that little boy who had touched so many hearts, he promised that Tommy would never face any challenge alone, because sometimes family isn't just about blood, it's about the people who show up when you need them most. Today, Tommy is thriving in school, and has become a confident young man who helps other kids who feel scared or alone, and when teachers ask him how he learned to be so brave, he always says, "My papa taught me to keep my promises, and my uncle David taught me that strangers can become family if you open your heart." Miguel has started a non-profit organization called Tommy's Promise that helps connect military veterans with families in crisis, because he believes that everyone deserves to have someone show up for them the way David showed up for his son, and in just 1 year, they have helped over 200 families find the support they desperately needed. The story of Tommy at the crosswalk has been shared millions of times on social media, and has inspired countless people to look around their own communities for children or families who might need help. And psychologists say that Tommy's story resonates so deeply because it reminds us that courage comes in all sizes, and that keeping promises matters more than anything else. David and Miguel have written a children's book about Tommy's adventure called The Boy Who Waited, and all proceeds go to helping military families and single parents who are struggling. And the book has become a bestseller because parents want their children to learn the same values of loyalty, courage, and compassion that Tommy demonstrated. What started as the worst day of Tommy's life became the beginning of a beautiful story about friendship, family, and the incredible power of human kindness. And if you ever find yourself walking past someone who needs help, remember Tommy at the crosswalk, and ask yourself what would happen if you stopped and knelt down and simply said, "I am here to help." The intersection where this all began now has a small plaque that reads in memory of all the heroes who stopped to help. And every time Tommy walks past it with his father and Uncle David, he smiles, because he knows that his story has made the world just a little bit better, and that sometimes the scariest moments in our lives can become the most beautiful ones if we don't give up hope. This is why we must always remember that children are watching how adults respond to crisis, and Tommy's story teaches us that even in our darkest moments, there are angels walking among us, and sometimes those angels look like strangers who choose to kneel down and offer comfort to a scared little boy who just needs someone to care. The bond between Tommy, Miguel, and David continues to grow stronger every day, and they have started a tradition of returning to that crosswalk every year on the anniversary of that life-changing day, not to remember the fear and sadness, but to celebrate the miracle of human connection, and to remind themselves that love always finds a way on. Whenever Tommy tells his story to other children, he always ends by saying, "If you ever feel alone and scared, just remember that somewhere there is someone who cares about you, and they might be closer than you think. So never stop believing in the kindness of strangers, because they just might turn out to be your family." If Tommy's story touched your heart, let it be a reminder that the smallest act of kindness can change the course of someone's life. Somewhere near you, there is a Tommy, waiting for someone to notice, someone to stop. Be that person. Share this story, and subscribe so more people remember that promises matter. Family can be found in unexpected places, and love always finds a way.